Afternoon. I'd like to call the regular council meeting of the municipality of Jasper to order at 1:30. I'd like to begin the meeting with the land acknowledgement that the municipality of Jasper respectfully acknowledges the municipality of Jasper is on Treaty 6 and 8 territories, as well as the Jasper House Métis District. This land is the traditional territory, meeting ground, gathering place, traveling route, and home for the Jineza, Assiniboine-Winewak, Assiniwachi, Neha, Nehewak, Anishinaabe, Secwepemc, Stoney Nakoda, Mountain Métis, and Métis. Has everyone had a chance to look at the agenda? Are there any additions or deletions? If not, is there a councillor willing? I apologize, Councillor Melnick.
If I may, I'd like to add item 6.9, a verbal update on the Prairies Jasper Recovery Program.
Thank you for that. Councillor Melnick, is there a councillor willing to make a recommendation that council approve the agenda, the amended agenda for the regular meeting of March 4th as presented, as amended? Councillor Demota, all those in favor? Motion carried. We have the minutes of the regular meeting of February 18th, 2025 in front of us. I'm assuming that everyone has read it. Was there any changes, or if not, would someone make a motion that we approve the minutes of that meeting?
I was here.
Councillor Demota? Okay. All in favor? Okay. Motion approved. We also have the committee of the whole meeting minutes from February 25th. And again, are there any additions or deletions or corrections? And I'm call for a motion. Councillor Hall, that council approve the minutes of the February 25th committee of the whole meeting as presented. All in favor? Motion carried. Moving on then to delegations. I see none in physically, and I'm not sure, no one else has said, so I think we'll move on to correspondence. Any correspondence, I'll give them.
None that in our Oscar.
Thank you. Then we move on to item new business and 6.1, Director's Report, Director of Finance and Administration.
Good afternoon, Deputy Mayor and Council. Thank you. I'll just give a quick summary of what's in the report. First off, there's information on IT as well as some other updates on staffing, which I'm sure that everyone has gone over, so I won't read word for word. Just for awareness for Council as well as public, our year-end audit is scheduled to occur March 24th to 28th, so that's coming up soon. We've all been very busy at planning and working on year-end. So that is on our radar. There's a lot of transactions to occur, and I'll speak more to that when we're talking about the financial state reports that you see attached to the report. This audit has to be And our financial statements need to be submitted by May 1st, so that is our deadline for this year, as every year. When it comes down to utilities and taxes, there's two things to note, especially for the public. January and February utility billings are in progress and they should be sent out shortly here. All the tax relief credits are complete and applied to tax rolls, so this will be seen on the 25 tax notices, as discussed in a prior meeting. There has been 24 new pre-authorized payment plans signed up for, so there has been an increased awareness in that payment plan, so that's good, and hopefully more to come. We are still working on the utility relief for July and August billings, so that's just more calculations, whatnot. So as we wrap up the year end, more transactions will occur and get reconciled. But there's been a lot of movement in housing, so a lot of utility bill changes, tenants moving and houses selling. So we see that in the office as well. And there was 5 tax arrears letters sent out this year to those in tax arrears over 2 years. Some of the things related to the wildfires still come through our office, obviously. Even though we have assistance through the JRCC, there's still a portion that our office still needs to take care of. A big one is that 95% of our infrastructure protection invoices have been taken care of. This is huge, considering I know that other communities haven't even started into getting some of this stuff taken care of even in year 2. So we're at 95% at paying all of those communities that assisted us. So we're really excited about that, because it's no guessing game at the end of the year for accruing the amounts that are due to others. So kudos to our staff working really, really hard to get those all organized and taken care of. It's huge. We've got 1 reception center paid off and 2 more to come. So obviously that'll change the reports as we see them laid out as of now. And DRP submission will be coming shortly here in March. So that's should be probably this week or next week that we'll be reconciling to the first deposit that we received. And obviously we've spoken just recently about the province and how much we are receiving from the province in recovery dollars. So that's noted on the report as well. To note as well as the assessment notices were mailed out this last week. The assessment date is March 10th, and then the complaint date is May 9th. So anybody wishing to contest or discuss or complain about their assessment, they must do so by May 9th. The assessor open house is scheduled for April 29th. So anyone that is concerned about their assessment can have those conversations with the assessor prior to even putting in the complaint, which is very advised, so that it's not a waste of anyone's time or money, efforts. So that's really important that the assessor is there to speak to anyone that wishes to. And the 2025 tax notices will be mailed out at very latest June 13th. And the payments will be due by July 15th as they are every year. And enrollment for the pre-authorized payment, just to remind people, if you enroll for the pre-authorized payment plan, this ensures that you do not owe the full payment in July, but your payments would be coming out monthly. On to the next page. I'm sure everybody was gasping for air as they saw the figure that is associated with this report. And I would just like to remind everyone that at this point, there is still a lot of work to happen in the next few weeks before audit. This is prior to doing any kind of internal adjustments, especially related to the wildfire and the DRP in recovery. So I would like to highlight that there is still that big adjustment. We have funds that are sitting to be allocated to the operating budget. And, not to, well, it's a big figure. I wanted it to be seen so that everyone could see the difference of how things have panned out, compared to other years. But there will be these transfers that will change how this will all lay out in the end. The big thing to note is that, in quick calculation, about 19 million is still being considered as what would be submitted to DRP and then 90% of that. But then there's still the reception centers to add on to that and whatnot. So there, we're looking at still accruing anywhere between $7 and $9 million by year end, which will be in a couple weeks. So things will change a lot. And then none of the tax, the tax reallocations have occurred or any kind of revenue loss or whatnot. So any of those transfers haven't occurred yet either. Next page goes over council's budget, sitting at a good place, under expected expenditures for the year. So that is fantastic. And then going into capital, you can see what projects are at. And then I've requested from staff an update on where these projects are for year end. And I'm hoping to come back to council very shortly with a carry forward report of which projects we would deem as complete or that they're work in progress to be continued into 2025. And you can see on this report, actually, there are 2 line items at the very end. And that is JRCC. So they are for the parcel GAHK as well as the HH and HF servicing. So that was for the interim housing. So there was no budget initially, obviously, set for that. And those will be, we'll continue to discuss what occurs with those. So more updates to come very shortly. I just wanted to make sure that the impact was seen before all of the updates were done internally with what we have received as assistance from the government. And that's the report in a nutshell. Thank you.
Questions for Director Milinchuk? Councillor Milner?
Thank you very much, and thank you very much, Ms. Malinchuk, through your worship. I know that it would be council's prerogative to review the approved budget that we put forward for 2025. And I appreciate the update on 2024. And the reason I'm asking is just had a little bit of communication from various stakeholders in the community, predominantly around or in the business sector, in the commercial sector, in the community. And going back to last week's council meeting when the chamber was here and we were having discussions on the opportunity for maybe revisiting the budget. I know they're not here today and I'm not speaking on their behalf, but on behalf of the people that approached me in the community, it's more or less there's a concern about spending and the amount of staff that we're taking on. Granted, a lot of that is from emergency funding. I get that, but just not only the optics, but the concern about our challenges with revenue going forward. We don't have an idea yet of what our revenues might be from street parking, things like that for the summer. So I wanted to encourage council at least to consider, going back and taking a look and see where we can find some savings somewhere, if there's that opportunity. And just when we have people in the gallery and members of the business community coming forward, and regardless if we understand or agree with their position, I think it's important to understand that their concerns are legitimate, and regardless of, what we think, how our budget looks to us and stuff. So I just want to say that there is a concern out there that maybe we're not taking their sense of urgency on what we need to do or what we should be doing in their eyes as a legitimate concern. So I wanted to make sure that the people that are out there that are concerned, that they are being heard and that their concerns are legitimate. I wanted to say that. Thank you.
Other questions or? Is there a councillor then willing to make the motion that council received the report for information? Councillor Wilson? All those in favor? Motion carried. We'll move then to 6.2, Jasper Recovery Coordination Center Progress Update.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Waxler and Council. Good afternoon. I am coming to you, although it looks like I'm still in Jasper by my background. I'm actually at the airport in Calgary on my way flying out, so I will be very brief for today's discussion, or as succinct as I can. So the first thing on the update from the JRCC, most important to acknowledge, is that the first approximately 70 households from displaced Jasper residents have now been moved into their interim housing. So that is taking place on 3 of the 4 sites. So HH and HF up at the north end and GA down on the south end. We are anticipating occupancy for the final site in town, HK, around the end of this week. I want to take a moment to acknowledge and appreciate all of the people who were involved in the significant and challenging work of making that happen. Not only were there challenges around logistics and obviously the significant contribution from Parks Canada in terms of finding the budget and the financing to be able to procure and mobilize these units, but then there was also, the entire JRCC team, both Parks and MOJ, who worked very hard to make this happen, and all of our consultants, including WSP, Jasper Concrete, Parkway, who all went above and beyond and addressed the very challenging conditions. We had bit of an early spring-like scenario in Jasper, and then we had some rain, so the ground conditions were particularly challenging and unexpected for this time of year. I'd also like to acknowledge significantly the contribution from the Red Cross, who are our property management and landlord partner on the interim housing. They did extraordinary work in terms of working with the community members and helping them move in. We also had support from Canadian Tire and the Samaritan's Purse in supporting people who moved in. So just want to acknowledge it was a collective and team effort across a number of agencies, organizations, and partners that all worked together to ensure that we could get those first folks who were up against the hard deadline to move out of the hotels into their new accommodation. So thank you to everyone who was involved in that. Next on the update discussion. So for some time now, there have been concerns raised in the community around the increase in rents and changing of terms and conditions in residential properties. It's beyond anecdotal now. We have received significant information to support the fact that this is becoming a considerable concern. So the JRCC will be moving forward with reaching out to both tenants and landlords to do a fuller assessment to understand the scale and scope of the challenge that is being faced by the community. And then based on a full and proper assessment, we may come back to council with an update and potential recommendations for further steps. But we are seeing enough area of concern there that concrete action by the JRCC is required to fully assess the scale of the challenge. On the demolition and debris removal side of things, things are moving positively there. Over 98% of permits have been issued, and Parks Canada is essentially in contact with only the handful of properties that have not yet moved forward with their permit. They are in discussion with them and understanding what their challenges are and helping them to move forward. The town rebuild team continues to do significant work in terms of answering questions and inquiries from the community. And furthermore, the first residential and commercial rebuild development permits have now been issued. And we will start to provide in this update on a going forward basis a tracking of those numbers as they start to increase. So you'll get to look forward to seeing the tracking of the development permit for the rebuild numbers coming in soon. Last week, we launched the social recovery, the needs assessment that we've been talking about for some time. We have received over 300 responses so far. Our target is to receive 400 responses. That will give us a representative sample that will allow us to extrapolate and draw conclusions. And so we are continuing to collect those, and we are optimistic that we will reach that sample size. Of course, community members who are not explicitly reached out to participate in that survey still have the opportunity to provide feedback to the JRCC through the usual channels around areas of concern that they may have. On the economic recovery side of things, we are continuing to work on the Commerce Continuity Initiative, which is to support businesses with the pop-up village and other types of initiatives like that. That is moving forward. We are expecting an announcement from the federal minister responsible for the funding support on that, ideally and optimistically this week. And the Lunch and Learn series has also received a grant to support businesses who will come together for educational sessions on areas of recovery and of interest to businesses. Those are the high-level highlights of where we're at on all things recovery. I am happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Thank you very much, Deputy Mayor Wexler. I have a few comments and a quick question. I did ask this earlier in the year. I wonder, Director Barr, if you could go through one more time post-removal sampling and why it's necessary. It keeps coming up in the community. I just would like it to be talked about again in our meeting.
Certainly. So with a wildfire event, and particularly where residential buildings and commercial buildings have been at a total loss, so completely burnt down, there is a high risk that there are contaminants that were released through the acceleration or the burning process. So to mitigate against that, the debris removal regulation and the permit conditions require the removal of a certain amount of soil off the surface to ensure that any potential remaining contaminants have been removed. The post-debris sampling is to go and to check the soil to ensure that all contaminants have been removed. And the contaminants are such that if they are left in place, they could pose potential long-term health consequences for people who are residing and in close proximity to those contaminants. So we do the testing to confirm that the mitigations and the debris removal process sufficiently removed all of those contaminants. And if there's anything remaining, then there is a follow-up process to ensure that those concerns are addressed.
Thank you for that. I have another question around, I'm sure we've all noticed this. I certainly have an increase in truck traffic on our streets. And maybe a potential, the drivers of the trucks not quite knowing that we're a cycling community. And I have had a couple close calls on not. I'm just wondering if when contractors come to town, are they getting some kind of welcome package, maybe, or just some notes around living in a national park? Maybe that could be part of it. I just noticed all the white trucks all over town coming really close to me when I'm cycling. I cannot drive, and I have heard that from other cyclists. My other concern I've heard over the weekend was the amount of dust that's happening right now in Jasper, and concerns are, I mean, I know we didn't have a lot of snow this year, so there wasn't a lot of snow removal, which usually will take a lot of the rocks and stuff that get put onto the ground, I'm sure it's, I'm not sure it's coming from the excavating sites, but it just seems to be extra dusty, and there's been some concern around what's in that dust. I'm curious if there's been any of those air quality tests, or if things are remaining the same, or do we get updated often on those air quality test stations?
So in regards to the first question, obviously all contractors are briefed and we have been in communication with them as they come into town. Of course, that is at the high level. We don't go to the extent of briefing each individual driver. And there are traffic laws in place that everybody is intended and required to adhere to. We do have OH&S who will be more present in the community for the next 4 weeks, and they will be able to engage potentially in some contractor engagement and enforcement. And we can certainly, if it is again becoming a concern, because it's been raised in the past and we have addressed it with the contractors in the past, but if we're seeing additional concern, then we are happy to raise again with them and remind them that they need to be courteous in town and obey all traffic rules and regulations. So we can certainly ensure that that reminder is delivered. In terms of the second question, so it has been an unseasonally warm and dry second half of February. For the sites where the debris removal is taking place, there is dust mitigation measures in place, and they are part of the permit conditions. So we at this point do not have a concern that dust originating from the debris removal sites is contributing to the dust in town. What's actually occurring is as part of the traditional snow and ice mitigations done by the utilities team, they lay gravel and dirt down on the roads in order to manage snow and ice. And unfortunately, because there is no residual snow and ice currently, what is happening is as vehicle traffic is moving through that area, it is kicking up that dust. I can't speak for the utilities team. I don't know. I wouldn't imagine that they would plan to go out and remove and street sweep this early in the season, given that we probably anticipate additional precipitation and snow, given where we are in the year. But that's a question that we could follow up on with them and see what their intent is. But short of going along and doing the street sweeping and cleaning up the streets or additional precipitation and snow, there's little we can do about that dust at this time.
Thank you for that. And then if I may, I have one more question. This is for administration, just around the east end entrance. It's a 50-kilometer-an-hour zone until you're actually past the new housing. And it seems really fast going through all the cars on either side of 50. I'm just curious if that's been addressed, or if maybe the 30-kilometer-an-hour can be pulled back before that community coming in from the east. And then I guess I can ask, is there a street sweeping plan in place right now? Because of the weather and how things have changed so much.
Maybe I'll take those ones, Director Parks. So first, administration is aware of the concern about the start of the 30-kilometer-an-hour zone. Representative Dawn and Director Donaldson, I've got a traffic advisory committee meeting later this week. They're looking at sort of the steps that are required to activate that. And the intention would be to extend the 30-kilometer-an-hour zone. Previously, it was less needed because there wasn't anything there, and also there weren't any access points coming on to Con Drive. Now that we have 2 new access points coming on to Con Drive, it's particularly important, along with the new neighborhood in that area as well. So administration will be looking at whatever technical steps are required, but we're aware of the need and intent to act to make that change. So you'll likely see a recommendation to amend the traffic safety bylaw coming forward shortly. With respect to street sweeping, as Director Park said, there's a bit of a balance. This is a bit of an early time of the year to be doing that, but it is a part of the municipality's regular service standards. I think the amount of dust that we're seeing right now is not completely atypical. We put down a lot of material over the course of the winter to improve traction for motorists. And then we have to pick it all up in the spring. And so that's the regular cycle of things, probably really accentuated by the debris removal activities and the extra mud on the streets. The administration is aware of that need. I know that Director Donaldson has been looking at our equipment and does have some concerns about the longevity of our one street sweeper. These are a piece of fleet that's always in high demand at exactly the same time of year across all municipalities. So I know Director Donaldson's looking at our one current unit that we have and whether that's going to be adequate or whether any other changes. But absolutely, it's on the roads team's radar. As a regular part of our processes, and people will be seeing that getting started over the coming weeks and months. Again, subject to weather, right?
Thank you very much.
Mr. Wilson.
Director Park, will you have a representative from the JRCC at hand for agenda item 6.5, which is interim space for non-public facing business?
Yeah.
Or will you still be here?
I will attempt to still be here, but CAO Given is also fully informed of the specifics of that program, and I understand will also be available to answer questions. Unfortunately, Mr. Ireland is unavailable due to other conflicting meetings.
Okay.
Councillor Melnick.
Thank you, Acting Mayor Waxman. I just have a quick question about the Business Lunch and Learn series and the 5-week series that's running. Has that been well attended, and what's the interaction been with the business community?
So that program has not yet started. We have just received the approval of a grant to support that, and we are identifying the first speakers. I believe the first series, the first of it will begin in the next couple of weeks. I can't remember I'm sorry, I apologize. I don't know the exact date off the top of my head, but we are expecting it to start imminently.
Thank you for that. Appreciate it. Safe travels.
Thank you, and I had one quick question for you. I wondered if you could speak to why the needs assessment survey was sent out in with random selection rather than to everybody.
Certainly. So from a methodological perspective, what we wanted was to be able to collect information in a way that would allow us to extrapolate from the data and inform decision making. So in a small community size, the size of Jasper, you have essentially two options. You can attempt to do an exhaustive survey where you attempt to survey all residents, and that is extremely difficult and very, very resource intensive. And ultimately, you are unlikely to manage to achieve that. The second alternative is to do a representative sample, which means you identify your total population size, you identify the sample size that you require in order for it to be representative, and then that is the sample size that you target. The reason why there's a difference between the two and the approach that we took. So if you open it up to everyone, anyone who might be interested, you introduce a significant amount of selection bias in terms of who responds to the survey and which populations are captured. And that is problematic when you're trying to do a needs assessment for the community and be able to take decisions about where the needs are and how best to address them. So representative sample ensures that we capture different age groups, different demographics, different socioeconomic statuses within the community in a way that is representative of the community on a whole. And if you just open it up to everyone and then only those who are interested and want to reply, you actually don't get a representative sample and you're not able to draw conclusions in the same way. So that is the reason for the approach that we have taken.
Thank you for that comprehensive answer.
And I can add that, sorry, I have been informed the first Lunch and Learn will take place on March 27th.
Councillor Councillor Melnick? Councillor Deloy.
Sorry, thank you very much for that, Deputy Mayor Waxer. There's a lot of things that I had written down and I wanted to expand on, and some of it was covered. I don't know if I want to go with the most recent to the earliest, but let's just start with, we talked about, street cleaning and dust in the community. We also heard about, you know, some of the toxic chemicals that happen during burn and, potential fallout from that, the toxicity. Well, I've had, members of the community ask me, through you to, administration, is there an opportunity for us to increase the transparency of air quality in the community, how it's being monitored? Can we get live updates, things like that? Because there is a genuine concern, and I don't blame people. You know, last year I think was the most amount of dust I saw in the community, and we're in normal situations, and I think it does seem the same. But you know, circumstances are a little different, and with all this stuff getting kicked up, there is a heightened concern. So I'm just wondering if there's an opportunity for us that we can better communicate, you know, live or current, data that's coming up from the monitors that we have in the community.
So thank you for the question. In regards to air quality monitoring, so there is a degree of air quality monitoring that it takes place at the debris removal sites to ensure that we are not, that no contamination is being released into the air as a result of the debris removal process, and that's part of the mitigation process that is ongoing. But that is site specific, so it does not speak to a broader community concern. Having said that, the monitoring that has taken place has not provided any indication of a concern. In the fall, just before the winter, the municipality undertook a community-wide air quality testing program that looked at comprehensive all potential contaminants, and we looked at that across the community, and the results of that came back indicated that there were no contamination concerns outside of the total loss sites. So there was no movement of contaminants by virtue of wind or other means from the debris removal sites elsewhere in the community. We will intend to do a final air quality testing at the end of the debris removal process, just to close the door on that issue and ensure that there are no ongoing or lingering concerns there. Parks Canada has a couple of air quality monitors in town, but they are not designed to pick up or to monitor for the sort of contaminants that we test for at the sites. They are general air quality. They were in place pre-fire. They're part of the ongoing Parks Canada environmental monitoring that takes place in other communities as well. So that's the summary of the program. There is no ongoing air quality monitoring outside of what takes place at the sites as part of the debris removal process.
Again, so I guess for me, it might be looking at opportunities where we can provide some type of comfort to our residents with what's actually happening currently in the community, regardless of the sites itself. You know, I think they're, again, using the term legitimate concerns. We've had runoff since the fall, things that, you know, occur in the community, and a lot of it is on the streets now, and that's getting kicked up. So if we don't have anything currently active that's monitoring what that air quality is or what the makeup of it is, people are concerned, and that's legitimate. So I don't have a direct ask at the moment, but people are looking for some help in that area, and providing some real-time transparency on what the quality of our current air looks like as a whole. And I get our challenges with having the monitors on site for those specific digs, but I think that there might be an opportunity. Having said that, I try to guide people to purple air. We do have 2 monitors in town. They're not well located for the most part. One is in the industrial area, and the other one is at the Alpine Senior Summit Lodge just outside there. You can go in and log in, and it'll tell you the temperature, air quality, per however it's measured, micro, nano, for whatever element. So there are a couple of things that you can go there, and since I recently checked, things weren't too bad. So I just wanted to point that out. Next thing was with the Lunch and Learn series. That's another shifting over to another spot. With that, I'm just wondering, with the actual learn aspect of it, are there going to be community or somebody representing the municipality at these events so that we can take back information on what we can learn from concerns in the business community, or is this more or less to come for business people to come and learn of from the guest speakers and other initiatives that are going on in the community? Through you, Deputy Mayor Waxer. Mr. Park.
Thank you, Councillor Demoto. So it is the JRCC that is organizing this series. And so obviously representatives from the JRCC will be present and participating in those lunch and learn activities. The idea is that it is targeting the business community and with topics that are relevant to business recovery and continuity, post-disaster, and topics that would be of concern for the business community going forward. And so certainly if there are, or the intent will be to us to monitor what is being said and the questions from the business community that may occur in those meetings, and then to understand what follow-up may be required.
Thank you very much. All right, next one, I was contacted today prior to the meeting on where we were at with getting better lighting in the Cabin Creek area, particularly for those that are living there and have to make their way back and forth at nighttime. There's a concern about wildlife waking up and human and wildlife interactions, and kids going back and forth from home at night, and it's still pretty dark over there. And so I think there are some that are concerned how things are looking, and are we going to start getting more lighting there in the near future?
So I believe I would defer that question to CAO Given, or as the street lighting program is, and the extent to which and the timeline in which they will be replaced is something that is being managed by the utilities team.
Yeah, thanks very much, Director Park, for Councillor Demoto. So administration has been in discussion with ATCO around street lighting. I can bring back an update about their plans for the Cabin Creek area. I know that there are also ongoing discussions about utilities in the Cabin Creek area. Given the extent of the damage, the utility providers are looking at coordinating a combined approach to sort of replacing all of the infrastructure using the right of ways that are available in that area. I don't right now have a timeline on sort of whether there are any plans for interim street lighting in that area, but I can get back to council.
Thank you for that. Appreciate it. That's back on the recovery side of things. Is there anything through you, Deputy Mayor Waxer, to Mr. Fark? The sign that used to be at Moline Lodge that people see when they're exiting the community going west or south. When we first got video footage or photographs of Jasper on fire, Moline Lodge is one of the places that was the first that we saw, and we still have that sign that's hanging there that's dilapidated, and it's a triggering reminder when people are constantly going by. Even though that site's specific to the people that are working, Alice Dawn or whoever may be on that property, is there any way we can encourage on getting that dealt with, taken down, or at least have the top removed on it or something, because it's still sitting there with the plastic hanging off of it. It's not very appealing to anyone, regardless if you're living here or visiting. So just thought I'd address that.
Thank you, Councillor Demoto. We can follow that up. We would have to work with the contractor who is responsible for the debris removal on that site, as that would fall to them as their responsibility. But we can follow up and see if we can expedite the removal of the sign.
Thank you, and I hope you're not too stressed out about catching your next flight with all the questions. And I appreciate you having the time for us today. Through you again, Deputy Mayor Waxer, just there's a question around the rental costs of the current interim housing units, and how that's been going. Are the rates set to be you know, at the same at the market, or are we subsidizing and getting some relief on the other side? And how's that all working out for the people that are moving in and for the time being?
So thank you, Councillor Demoto. The rents for the units were set using the provincial government's market rate assessment. So we had the pre-fire rental rates in town, and what the provincial government does is they provide a low, a median, and a high end of a range. So the JRCC took that the study done by the government of Alberta. We looked at the ranges, and then we looked at the nature of the units, including their temporary nature, the size, the location, etc. And based on that, we made the determination that the appropriate rent for those units was at the low end of that range. And then we included in that some consideration for coverage of utilities, because there's no ability to individually meter and monitor consumption of power or water for any of these units. So the rents for those units that the residents are paying are inclusive of all utilities. So we took the low end of the range and we added a consideration to cover utility costs as well. That's how we determined the rental rates. The rents are considered to be reasonable and fair at the low end of the market for Jasper, given the nature of the accommodation. Having said that, the cost to mobilize those units and have them in Jasper is much higher than we can recover from rental rates. Even if we charged at the absolute highest end of the rental range for units in Jasper, we would still not be able to recover sufficiently to cover the costs of mobilizing the units. So Parks Canada is subsidizing the existence or the mobilization of those units in Jasper to allow them to be used for interim housing. So what we're able to recover from rents is not intended to cover the full operating cost and rental costs of the units. It is meant to represent a fair rental rate for that style of unit in Jasper.
I appreciate that clarity, and I think that might provoke some questions for next week, but right now that's a satisfying answer for me today. And then my very last question just has to do again with commercial and recovery. I'm grateful that we have the continuity initiative going, and then the next agenda item that's coming up regarding that. My focus on this question is more on the downtown core. I'm not sure what's happening at the advisory committee level. However, there are some concerns about, the focus on the overall look. I know that we've had some stores that were closed already prior to the fire, and then we have the current recovery efforts in other buildings that are happening right now, and we don't have a lot of control over that. But with tourism coming in for the summertime, Again, there were concerns about, you know, the overall look of our downtown core and the beautification of that. And are there considerations being made to help enhance around, you know, our current situation and maybe promoting these other businesses that are close to maybe take advantage of maybe moving on or getting their businesses open? Just kind of a three-part question there.
Director Fark, I think I'll probably take that one. I think this is sort of more municipal business as usual. The municipality obviously has a long-term concern and desire to see a vibrant downtown core. Council has provided money in the capital budget around planning for the downtown. We're also looking at what other tools might be available. I know other council members have raised concerns about empty storefronts. We're considering what other tools might be available to administration, to council. We do have to remember that there is a balance between ensuring that private landowners can, you know, manage their property in a way that they see fit. And there may be a number of different complicating factors between why some storefronts may be vacant or, you know, unoccupied. It's heartening though to see that there's at least one location that's scheduled to open up this fall that's been vacant for a number of years. So, you know, the market is working as it should in those areas. I think the overall sort of vision for downtown is a longer term project that could require significant capital investment on both public infrastructure and would require private investment. You know, building owners need to be willing to spend money to upgrade their buildings. And as a municipality, our challenge is to figure out how we can incent that, support that, encourage that, you know, through carrots and sticks and all those types of approaches to get to a place where we have a central business district that is becoming of a international tourist destination. So it is certainly top of mind for administration. I think that what we're most likely to see in terms of a longer term sort of more strategic approach would be alignment with the town plan. The Urban Design and Standards Department is working on the initial stages of visioning with the community what we would see as the future for Jasper. Because anything that we want to do in the downtown core, we want to make sure is in alignment with that longer term vision. So more to come on that. And the administration is looking at what steps might be available to us in the near term.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that, and I'm thankful and appreciate the people that are watching, listening now and then down the road. I'm struggling with thoughts today and getting my words out, so I'm thankful as well that the people receiving my request for information or understanding what I'm trying to get at. So I appreciate that, and I appreciate council's time for listening to my questions.
Are there any further questions for Director Fark or administration on this report? If not, is there councillor willing to make the motion that council receive the report for information? Councillor Wilson, I'll call the question. All in favor? Motion carried. Well, thank you, Director Fark, for excellently written and presented report. We'll move then to 6.3, Fire Department Staffing, Captain of Prevention. Or the
I was certainly looking to Director Don to make sure that she's ready. You also will keep in mind that this is a recommendation from committee last week. So administration isn't here with a report to present. A reminder to council that our recommendation is for council to establish this position as a full-time continuous role subject to confirmation of TRP program eligibility. So as reported last week by Director Don, this position is integral to recovery work and the demands created in the near term far exceed what administration had planned for. And recruiting for the position and getting appropriate skills and knowledge has been particularly challenging, as a qualified applicant would have to leave other continuous employment to come and take a term position. That's why administration is recommending that similar to some of the planning positions, two of the planning positions, that were established as full-time continuous and supported by DRP funding. Administration is recommending the council take the same approach to this. And at the committee, the motion was developed, was amended so it is as appears in front of you, making the sort of filling of that position actually subject to confirmation of GRP eligibility. Administration has started those discussions. I don't have anything to report to you today on that. But it's council's intent is clear that administration should not fill this position. We may start recruiting, but we should not fill a position until such time as it's confirmed that the first 2 years, or sort of the first portion of that full-time continuous role would be covered by DRP.
Questions for CAO given or Director Nardone? If not, is there a councillor ready to make the motion that council approve the conversion of the captain of prevention position to a continuous role subject to disaster recovery program eligibility? Oh, Director, Councillor Melnick, are you making that motion or did you have a question? Making the motion. Okay. I'll call the question. All those in favor?
Oh, wait,
Oh, pardon me?
maybe discussion and debate.
Discussion and debate.
Oh, sorry, discussion and debate. So you're right.
Well, that's fine. I just, I'm not supporting this motion at the moment. Just on a bunch of different levels, one of them is optics and, definitely going back to needing to look at the budget, at a greater, oversight and, reconsideration of, you know, positions and what we're doing in the community. I think there's a lot of concern out there about, you know, potential issues down the road. So at this point, I'm not going to support this one.
Thank you. Are there other discussion or debate? Councillor Hall.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Webster. I do support this motion. And that comes from the concern of our fire department, the mental health and well-being, and yeah, I do support this motion.
Councillor Melnick.
Thank you, Acting Mayor Waxray. I would have made the motion, of course, I'm going to support the motion. I think the important part of the motion is the portion of it that says subject to disaster recovery program eligibility, which in our discussions indicated that this would be supported at least in the time that we can recover funding for this particular position through that program, which should not impact future budgets until potentially 2027. And that's why I support the motion and why I made the motion.
I too will support this motion. I believe in July 2024, the value and importance of the fire department was very highlighted, and I think it's also critical that we respect that that was an enormous toll on each individual, and that it's critical that we in this time support the recommendations that come from that department to ensure that they're well positioned to continue to provide protection to our community. If there's no further discussion or debate, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion is carried with one opposed. Now then to fire department staffing. Director Midon or CAO Given?
Thank you, Councillor Waxer. As this is a similar request, albeit maybe a bit more straightforward than the previous one. So this is a recommendation from committee. So last week, committee recommended council approve the extension of 8-term firefighter positions to continue through the fall of 2025. So this is a bit more in line with the regular process for DRP funded positions, which are usually term positions. And we've had those positions in place for about 4 months now. They're on a 6-month term, and we are asking for them to carry on 8 of them. We have 10 approved initially. We are now asking for 8 to continue through the fall of 2025 to carry us through hazard season as our volunteer fire department and staff full-time position as well continue to recover. And this is to ensure that we can continue providing our level of service through the busy summer season ahead, so increasing call volumes, but also with hazard season at our doorstep, we're expecting that are some of the challenges we're facing with individuals being fit for duty and mental health challenges associated with that may flare up, for lack of better words. And to make sure that we can, like I said, continue getting trucks out the door and meeting our service level, we do need those positions for at least through the fall, through the end of hazard season. So that is the request before you.
Councillor Demore.
Thank you very much, Deputy Mayor. Through you to Ms. Adone, just to confirm, again, these positions are completely DRP funded for the extension.
That is correct, Councillor Namoda. So these are term positions. Unless we come back and receive approval otherwise, they would end in the fall of 2025 and they are eligible for DRP. We've confirmed that. There would be another level of approvals to the DRP directly following this motion from council if it is successful. But yes, that is a term positions fully funded by DRP.
That's good. I know we haven't entered into debate on that, but more so than through the winter time. You know, getting the people into the positions, I think, is more important now for this, to have those people on the ground here and available. So I will be supporting this once there's a motion.
Councillor Wilson.
Yeah, I would put the motion on the table that council approve the extension of 8-term firefighters positions to continue through to the fall of 2025.
Open for discussion and debate. I didn't get this. Seeing none, I'll call the question. All in favor? Motion carried unanimously. We move then to 6.5 interim space for non-public facing businesses. Well,
Sure, I can provide a bit of a brief introduction again. Committee last week, administration presented a recommendation to council that council approve the discontinuance of the storage lot service, essentially RV parking in S block, in order to support recovery and rebuild related projects. We've had a couple of references today to our commercial continuity program, and the intent is to be able to provide space to allow for rebuild workforce and rebuild commercial operations. And in the report, administration highlighted that there will be residents that are impacted by the discontinuance of the service, approximately 77, I think the number was. Administration has continued to look for alternative options. Of course, there are options available generally in the private market. But administration has been doing some legwork to try to assist residents with the transition. And we're exploring whether there might be an opportunity to provide some transitional space for residents that are looking to take up sort of a commercial location somewhere else, for the fall for the parking for their RVs. In any case, administration identified that, the direct benefit to 77 individual folks who are renting these spaces, is obviously valuable to them, that there is likely greater value to be had by making the space available to support the overall reconstruction of Jasper. And again, administration has incorporated the potential to use this space in our applications to Prairies Can for funding for our commercial continuity initiative. We expect to hear some positive news about that in the near term. So I think all of that was detailed last week in the report to committee. Since the committee's recommendation to council to move forward with discontinuing that service, administration has, at the direction of committee, developed a bylaw to rescind the storage loss bylaw. So there was two parts to the committee motion last week. One was the recommendation to council to support the discontinuance of the service, and the second was direction to administration to bring forward the legislative changes required to do so. So you'll see attached to the council package, bylaw 267 being a bylaw to repeal the regulation and control of municipal storage lots bylaw. So we have three pieces of business for you today. One, that council endorsed the discontinuance of that service, and subject to that endorsement and support, that council read for the first time bylaw 267, and then second reading of 267 before it will go to the Parks Canada for certification and come back with subsequent council.
Okay, thank you for that, CEO Given. It looks like Councillor Moore has a question.
Thank you very much, through you to, CEO Given. This just kind of came up and I apologize if this was discussed in the past, but, just to make it less cumbersome, I was just wondering if there's an opportunity within our legal ability to suspend a bylaw so that we don't have to repeal and then do another one, and we could just operate with that bylaw suspended until we need to put that back in place again, so we don't have to go through the processes of getting accepted through the superintendent.
I don't know the answer to that. I would suggest that if a bylaw is on the books, you may be able to suspend or provide some variance from portions of the bylaw with council motion. That administration did recommend last week, and committee is recommending to council to actually discontinue the service. That likely would be for the foreseeable future. We imagine, that under any likely scenario, the minimum amount of time this space would be needed would be 3 years. Rebuild activities will likely extend beyond 3 years. The administration believes that this space, the highest and best use for these properties is likely not as RV storage into the future. The council of the day, will have the ability to reconsider this space and how they might wish it to be used. And at that time, it wouldn't be a heavy lift administratively to bring forward a bylaw. Council decided that they did want to go back to storing RVs there, and in 5 years from now. My suspicion is, again, recognizing the sort of very limited space in Jasper and the need for more commercial space for particularly back of house activities in S Block. I would be surprised if the best use was for the RV storage. But again, it's not a heavy lift administratively to bring forward bylaw if required in the future.
I appreciate that. And I'm assuming that also, the one that we purposely built that's paved in S Block, that it's included in this, correct? So with the commercial vehicles?
It is not.
Okay, I apologize then. Now, is it possible to read first and second at the same time? Just that council read for the first and second time bylaw.
Hold on. There's still questions.
No, I'm just asking, I'm not
He's asking.
making the motion, I'm asking if that's possible. That's what I'll say, go ahead.
Legislatively, the process for passing any bylaw is to have 3 separate readings, and so they have to be independent motions.
Councillor Wilson.
My apologies, I was not in attendance last week, so I do have a fair amount of questions, and they may have been answered. I apologize if I'm wasting some time, but, where should I start? Okay, so, it's not that I'm not in support of this, but I feel like we're taking our eyes off other, possibilities and maybe kind of looking at too many things at once. For many months, we've been discussing, since the woodlot came off the plate for housing. We've been looking at that for, contractor laydown, secants, et cetera. And now this, the focus seems to be kind of falling off of that and then now focusing on lots where we are actually going to be disrupting not just 77, but 77 individuals who have been, paying taxes in our community for many years, if not decades. I see 2015 is the longest waiting person on waitlist. So there people have had these spots for quite some time. And we are actually giving away a lot of our land that could be used for this something similar to this application to one entity that I think administration was at some point going to return back to us and let us know, like, are we being compensated for the Alice Don lot? Now called the Alice Don lot. So I think the elephant in the room is like that's a huge amount of land is being used by one contractor. I'm assuming that contractor is going to be out of there in May. Why have we not considered that parking lot for this use? Why aren't we considering woodlot? Woodlot makes a lot more sense because there's a lot more room and it doesn't have to be rebuilt around. So I feel like we're kind of like all over the place in this, and this might, it's not that I don't support this. I think that this might have to be the case in the future, but I don't feel like disrupting 77 longtime residents is necessary at this point until we maximize the wood lot, Ellis Don lot, the commercial parking lot that is not full yet.
CAO, given I also see that Director Clark is now up on the screen.
Thanks very much, Deputy Mayor Waxer, and Director Park can probably speak to some of the details about the other initiatives, but Councillor Wilson, a number of those points were raised last week. And Director Park can speak to the details about the woodlot. I know that he referenced specifically that the woodlot is under active development and is intended to be used for larger rebuild packages like framing packages and sort of larger materials laydown yards. So that absolutely continues to be the intent. Administration and parks are working together to ensure that the woodlot is available for laydown for rebuilt materials. The Ellis Don, and I can, Director Park, I'll just tee you up. You can maybe speak to what the transition looks like with Ellis Don. But I know that administration fully expects that lot will be adjacent to the old home harbor location, that it will return to its functional use during the summer months, which is for oversized parking for visitors. And also is a really important intercept point for a lot of our tour operators. So administration is fully planning that lot needs to be available to support commercial operations and the activity of our visitor economy. So, well, I'll leave it to Director Park to speak about the transition with Ellis Don is currently occupying. Administration knows that space is needed for our summer functioning with our, for our visitors and for our tour operators. So we don't foresee it as a good place to turn into new commercial space. When we do have vacant land that is nearby services and electricity that is readily available. Again, there are a number of different reasons why the land in S Block has many better uses than for private parking for under 80 people in town. Director Park, maybe you want to speak to the transition plan for the site that's being occupied by Ellis Don.
Certainly. Thank you, CAO Given. Yes, so Ellis Don will be wrapped up. We are anticipate by about the end of April. And as indicated, the intent is for that lot to return to its intended use, which is commercial operation and oversized vehicle parking. On the topic of compensation, so it has been discussed previously with council and approved. In consistent with all other laydown requests and the overall program that we're proposing to support the rebuild in Jasper, we did not seek compensation for the use of that site, similar to how we will not seek compensation for laydown and other uses on other properties within town. The woodlot is intended to be a laydown and staging area, but it is not intended to be a powered location. So essentially it will be for large scale staging of material that is needed to support the rebuild. And so, yes, I believe that otherwise CAO Given has answered the question. I would just point out that we are, as the JRCC, advancing a number of initiatives on a number of fronts, all simultaneously. So the fact that one is coming together or coming before council at this moment in time doesn't mean that there are others have been abandoned or are not continued to be actioned. In fact, they are all being actioned simultaneously.
Councillor Wilson.
So 77, people may be displaced. I hope that we've queried how many of those 77 have been otherwise affected and displaced. So if we have that number, I wouldn't want to further displace people, as well as how many businesses do we think we're going to benefit with this? I wouldn't suspect it's 77 because there weren't 77 in the S block businesses affected.
The intention, as I understand it, is to make these spaces available in the near term, at least one of the sites available for contractors to be able to conduct activities on site, to store equipment, tools close, inside the town site, and to actually conduct activities there. The other locations, because the municipality runs, I think, about 3 spots under this purpose. We anticipate need for other types of rebuild activities over the course of the next 3 to 5 years. So again, it is administration has a specific plan and target for the initial setup, again, around that support for contractors, both local and non-local. To be very clear, the intent is to create secure, powered space within the town site where back of house businesses can operate, store materials, smaller materials, store tools and equipment to help aid any of the individual leaseholders or businesses that they're going to be able to support. And the additional spaces, administration would look to propose additional rebuild related uses over the coming months.
Councillor Melnick.
Thank you, Acting Mayor Waxer. And I just wanted to clarify, when we talk about these 3 different sites, these laydown sites could be used when we talk about contractors. I'm assuming that we also are including essential services such as should ATCO Power need a place as a laydown spot when they're replacing light fixtures, or ATCO Gas, should they need additional space to bring in a volume of necessary equipment, and would these also be available to private contractors who are rebuilding homes? In other words, it's not just benefiting the business community. I think the idea of this is that it benefits the entire community simultaneously. And if I've misinterpreted why we're doing this, then I'd like clarification, but I envision this to be spaces available as needed throughout the summer based on what activity is going on, and potentially for businesses to have a space for storage of tools and equipment and so on.
CAO Given.
Thanks, Deputy Mayor Oxford. So I do want to highlight one thing. Councillor Melnick, you asked about ATCO and sort of their larger materials. As Director Park referenced, those would be more likely things that would go out at the woodlot. So oversized materials likely out there, although there will be a need for all types of materials over the course of the next 3 to 5 years. And again, appreciating that there's some amount of uncertainty about exactly how the rebuild will evolve. we want to have as much flexibility with respect to, land as possible. The first site, is intended, to be, essentially a organized container workshop area. So containerized workshops that are available for contractors who would be doing rebuilds of all types. And so any local businesses, or non-resident contractors that need space in Jasper to facilitate their participation in the reconstruction of residential properties and commercial properties, those would all be in scope. And we're essentially, council is probably quite familiar with the commercial sort of retail pop-up village, container village that administration has proposed and the council supported. This is essentially an industrial sort of service sector side of that, where there would be a containerized shops, containerized storage places that are actually powered, where somebody could work out of them, could store materials, and the intent would be for those to be businesses that are actively involved in reconstruction efforts.
Councillor Wilson.
A great initiative for sure. But, this is something similar to what, pre-fire we discussed maybe could happen on the commercial lot that gets underused even pre-fire. So again, I would just want to make sure we're maximizing all the stuff that's already available to us. I'm also concerned about the timeline, like it suggests that this is a timely solution, but again, 90 days notice for the trailers and then all the services that would have to go in. So this is 4 months away. The contractors needed places 4 months ago, and the woodlot still is not available. So it doesn't, to me, seem timely. It's definitely like benefits us in the future, but I think we got to maximize what's already immediately available to us, not something that we're vacating.
CEO Given.
Thanks, Deputy Mayor Oxford and Councillor Wilson. I appreciate your desire to see all the things working as quickly as possible. So that's absolutely heard and understood. Just to be clear, administration's recommendation is to rescind the bylaw, which is what actually puts in place the 90-day limitation for sort of notice. With rescinding the bylaw, then administration would have more flexibility to work with the folks in those lots to find some sort of transition for them, and we wouldn't have that barrier. We are looking at procurement already and have a site layout for what the containerization would look like on that site. And administration has also done work to find outside of, and to be very clear, outside of town site, outside of the national park, options for folks to store their RVs as early as April 1st. So, we would want to make sure that we're dealing with anybody that would be impacted in a reasonable way. We also discussed last week that if, folks were not in a position to find an alternate storage place for their personal items, that we could find storage in the town site at alternate locations, either the oversized vehicle parking that Councillor DeVota mentioned. We also have been using RV storage behind the washrooms for a temporary period. Obviously, as we get into the retail commercial container pop-up village projects, that site's going to start to be constrained. And we've also contacted operators outside of the national park to see if we might be able to come to some arrangement where the municipalities could secure transitional spaces for those private owners before they take on sort of the commitment themselves. So we're working to try to facilitate things as quickly as possible, while appreciating that people may need some time and space to make a decision that's right for them. And we would be in a position to be able to offer a number of different alternatives.
Councillor Wilson.
Thank you. And just, I'm sorry to do this here, Mr. Fark, if you're there, but to speak to, too many projects on the go, in my mind, and I'm sure the team is supporting him, but I think that Mr. Ireland is the lead on a workforce camp, interim housing, pop-up village, industrial, and I think also the woodlot. So it seems like there are 4 projects that need attention and maybe kind of complete one before we move on to the next. And I'm sorry if that's, rude, but yeah, I just want to make sure we're not like spreading resources too thin. We've got to like keep knocking things off.
So thank you, Councillor Wilson. Obviously, there was a process of prioritization with all of the members of the JRCC and the multiple different projects that are being advanced, and that is ongoing. And there are certain processes that take a certain amount of time, and there are times when we will focus on other priorities. The last couple of weeks, the priority was getting people into interim housing and getting those sites settled. Having said that, we do believe we have sufficient capacity in place to be advancing these initiatives, and we are doing it in the timeline that is required. So the commercial continuity that we're looking at the in S block was always intended to be ready for the spring when the reconstruction season would start. So we're not seeing significant demand at this moment in time. We are preparing for when that demand is expected to begin. Just like we are looking at the laydown in town and other similar style initiatives. So, understanding the concern that you're raising, we believe that we have the capacity in place and that we are moving each of the initiatives along with the required timelines and the capacity required.
We'll go to Martin. Did you have a question?
I don't think I have more questions. I really like, the train of thought that Councillor Wilson's on, and, questioning using our infill prior to making a broader decision like this. However, just for clarification again, to get back to the woodlot, did we not receive information last week that not only that it's just not deemable for housing, but we shouldn't or can't be using it because of its pre-existing nature of the landfill?
So I can clarify that for you, Councillor Demoto. So it cannot be used for storage of enclosed structures. And that is due to the residual issue of the pre-existing land site. But for laydown of bulk material, it is considered appropriate and reasonable. So framing packages can go there, soils, gravels, other types of materials, cement, all that type of material can be moved and stockpiled there. It would not be considered appropriate storage. So it would not be considered appropriate storage for RVs, for example, because they are enclosed structures.
But a boat can fit on there. Okay, I don't want to get too much into those details, but I think Councillor Wilson had further questions.
Yeah, just sorry, if I may. With that answer, Director Park, it did rule out a little bit more of the usage for contractors, whereas I think the original suggestion was lay down and secant storage.
So to clarify, Councillor Wilson, we're not intending for there to be secant storage at the woodlot. That's the reason why we're trying to address and make available the lots in town. So the woodlot is intended for non-enclosed structures for staging of material there.
So since this was in conversation last week and then hitting our agenda on Friday, I did get some communication from people that are providing support businesses in the community, not only trades, but are concerned and interested in using the current storage lots, the RV storage lots, to lay down tools and do things like that. And I think there's a pretty big demand on it. I'm also concerned, like Councillor Wilson is, about displacing other people who have already been displaced and to further their, personal stress. And those are one of those things that sometimes it's not at the top of mind, when you're not in that situation. So I'm grateful that you brought that forward. And so I'm stuck right now on the needs of the many versus the few. And sometimes the few, because of their predicament, might outweigh the other side. So definitely something to think about at the moment.
Any other comments or questions? And if not, is there a councillor prepared to make a motion? Councillor Demota.
May I suggest a recess and then go back to this?
Okay. We will return to the council table at 3:10.
Thank you.
Welcome back. Are there any other questions, concerns, thoughts that should be shared before we look at having a motion on the interim space for non-public facing business? If not, is there a councillor prepared to make a motion? Councillor Demota.
Okay, because I was specifically asked to support this, and taking some time to have further consideration, I'd like to move this forward. I think that a lot of the businesses in the community, particularly the ones that have lost spaces to operate in, have faced a lot of issues in the past, and particularly the support services that we don't see that are front facing, have struggled with finding spots to operate out of, and some of them in probably not Parks Canada approved areas, and doing the best that they can. So I'm understanding a lot of the issues that we have here, and I thank Councillor Wilson for coming forward with the alternate thoughts there. But I think it's important to move this forward. So I'm ready to, at least at this point, that council read for the first time bylaw 267, being the bylaw of the specialized municipality of Jasper in the province of Alberta, to repeal a bylaw for the regulation and control of municipal storage lots.
Yeah, Kevin, I think we missed there the preamble important to include.
There was, not the preamble
Okay.
bylaw, but there was a, recommendation from committee, that was sort of framed first, in the council agenda package, that council discontinued the storage lot service to support recovery and rebuild related projects. I think if the intent of passing the bylaw to rescind, is to enable that, then I don't know that the other motion is required.
Okay. Thank you for that. I just
Okay.
wanted to confirm.
I guess, so we're still gonna need 3 separate motions, once the third reading comes, but so then I can, if you wanna put the preamble in, recommendation that council discontinue the storage lot service to support recovery and rebuild related projects. And
First reading of.
the first reading.
Okay. Okay, I believe we're open for discussion and debate. Yeah. Seeing, Councillor Melick.
thank you for getting the recommendation on the table to support discontinuing the use of storage lots. I think we had a debate that covered a lot of different aspects to this. I still reflect back to what is the greater good in the next 2 to 3 years. And so I support the recommendation that we discontinue using the service lots at this time and rescinding the bylaw when that opportunity comes.
Any further discussion or debate? I'll call the question then. All in favor? And all opposed? Thank you. Then, Councillor Demoted, would you like to do the second reading?
Sure, that's usually our practice. So, I move the council read for the second time bylaw 267, being the bylaw of the specialized municipality of Jasper in the province of Alberta to repeal a bylaw for the regulation and control of municipal storage lots.
And, okay, Councillor Melick.
Did I hear that we're reading this for the first time or the second time?
This was the second time.
Did we vote on the first time?
We mixed them together with the recommendation.
Yeah.
Which CAO gave his stamp of approval to.
If I may, I apologize for the confusion, Councillor Melick. This is the second reading.
Okay, I'll call the question. Sorry, Councillor Hall.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Waxer. I just wanted to speak in favor of these motions and to, I guess, quote Councillor Melnick in the last few weeks. It's not going to be business as usual in Jasper for the next 5, probably to 10 years. And I think we have to get used to thinking outside the box, trying things that will work and help us in our recovery. So I appreciate these motions coming forward.
Now I'll call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Thank you. The motion is carried. We move on into 6.6, council remuneration, post 2025 election. CEO Gibbon, will you speak to that?
Sure, Deputy Mayor Roxer. So, as with the other items on the agenda today, this comes as a recommendation from committee. There was extensive discussion last week about the report presented by administration to the committee. The recommended policy in front of you has some minor changes, specifically that there is no supplement for the time that council member spent as deputy mayor. That was removed at the recommendation of committee. But I think otherwise, policy is as it was presented at committee. The intent of this is to have in place a policy that will set the remuneration for the 2025 to 2029. Wow. That's the first time saying that out loud for the 2025 to 2029 council term. And so to be 100% clear, your vote on this today does not impact the council salaries for the current term. This would only take effect after the upcoming municipal election in October of this year.
Any questions for administration? Councillor Shimoda.
No questions. This is for the next council, not this current council.
And with that, is there someone prepared then to make the motion? That's the list.
I would make a motion that council approve policy B104 as presented.
Any discussion or debate? I'll call the question. All those in favor? Motion carried unanimously. Moving on to 6.7, Jasper Municipal Housing Corporation, additional named insured. CAO Given, do you want to speak to this?
Not a lot to cover. The recommendation here from committee is the council approve adding the JMHC under the municipality's insurance policy. This step does require a formal council motion, that's why it's coming forward. This is consistent with the approach the municipality has taken with the Jasper Municipal Library, an independent but closely related organization, which is also under the municipality's insurance policy. The JMHC will be responsible for any premiums related to the insurance coverage. So just to make that clear, there's no expense or cost to the municipality, just a formal council endorsement motion is required, and that's why it's being recommended forward. And again, it's consistent with past practice with similar organizations.
Thank you for that, CEO Given. Is there any questions for administration? Councillor Melnick.
I didn't hear any other questions, and I'm ready to make the recommendation or the motion that council approve the Jasper Municipal Housing Corporation request to be an additional named insured under the Municipality of Jasper insurance policy.
Discussion or debate? I'll call the question. All in favor? Motion carried unanimously. 6.8, Economic Developers of Alberta Conference. I believe this may be you, Councillor Melnick, to speak to it.
I don't know if it's appropriate for me to make a motion for me to attend. I'd prefer if another councillor would choose to make that motion.
But just for anyone who wasn't here, that this is on the agenda in the to approve your attendance at this conference in May. Would someone else be happy to make that motion?
Correction quickly, that conference would be in April.
Okay.
Well, you know, I think for the most part, oh, sorry, if I may.
Go ahead, Councillor Dumont.
Okay, that's kind of the day when I you know, I think that we're all responsible for our own budgets and things that we do. So in case that something does come up and someone else could attend this, you know, I recommend the council approve the attendance of any councillor that would like to go to or attend the Economic Development Alberta Conference in April of 2025.
I'll open it up for discussion. Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Motion carried unanimously. And finally, to 6.9, the Prairies can, which I believe you, Councillor Melnick, would like to speak to.
Yes, I'd just like to highlight the program that was offered by Prairies Can and administered through Community Futures West Yellowhead to assist businesses operating in Jasper and Jasper National Park as a result of the wildfire, where there was an opportunity for non-repayable grants closed as of February 28th. Without getting ahead of the game, things are still being processed, and I'd just like to say thank you to the Community Futures Office and the administrative people who worked on those various applications and with our businesses and residents who qualified, and that a more detailed report will be coming once all of the details are finalized.
Thank you for that, Councillor Melnick. Are there any questions for Councillor Melnick? Do we need a motion to accept the report for information? Moving on then to item 7, notices of motion. Councillor Demota.
I don't have a notice of motion, but I was just wondering if it's not intended on the agenda for next week, if we could have someone from the urban planning development be present, just because there's some housing questions that I have that are concerns in the community, rising concerns, and it wasn't on the agenda today. So I just wanted to, you know, as a public ask, to have that discussion next week, an item on the agenda.
CA will give it.
Deputy Mayor Waxter for Councillor Demota, absolutely, you're gonna get your fill of the Urban Design and Standards Department.
Sorry.
It's okay, no, it's you, I know we all really think about what the function of that department is, and then before the name, and the name, maybe doesn't necessarily align, but they certainly are concerned about the urban form within the town and the standards that we keep it to, so urban design and standards. And, council will see, I think, at least 3 different RFDs from the department next week. And so I think they'll see the full contingent here and lots of opportunity to ask questions about things other than the RFPs that are coming forward.
Thank you, and I apologize to you and Director Sanders for the faux pas that I continually struggle with, but I'll make sure that I bring those along down the road.
There are no further notices of motion. We move then to councillor reports. Councillor Demota.
Well, no, this isn't a really big, it's not a report of mine, but a bigger thing that happened for us as far as, you know, councillors' participation and different things goes. I was just happy to be part of, Councillor Keller, MP's, award of the King's Medal for her service during the fire and evacuation and with the seniors. And she was nominated by quite a few members of the community on her service. And she received the award at the Alpine Senior Summit happy hour on Friday. And our member of Parliament, Gerald Siraka, made his way down here to present the medal officially. Councillor Keller MP was very modest about this and didn't alert everybody. We were invited to happy hour, but there wasn't a broad reason. So I think it would be appropriate down the road for us to get together at one point and collectively celebrate that recognition, because that's a pretty big thing.
Thank you, Councillor Demota. Are there other councillor reports? Councillor Hall.
Thank you very much, Deputy Mayor Waxer. On Friday morning, the US councillors had the privilege of attending the annual Municipal Impact Awards, which were really moving. It's where we municipal employees get nominated by their coworkers, and it was a really great morning and a lunch. Last Wednesday, I know this isn't a council appointment, but I'm taking part in the Pathfinders program, and I had my second full day training. It was a mental health first aid course, which I have not taken before. And if you have the chance, I think everybody should take it. It should be taken just like everyone takes regular first aid, physical first aid. It was really amazing, and Trevor Haas from Hinton, he's also a municipal councillor, was incredible. It's probably one of the best courses I've taken in my time in taking courses.
I just speak to the fact in my role as deputy mayor in the last couple of weeks, I've attended a few conferences to provide opening addresses and welcome to the community. And at each of these conferences, there's been they're recurring conferences that have chosen Jasper as their place to meet annually, and each of them expressed appreciation for being welcome back and after the 2024 wildfires, and also with the expressed intent to continue to support the community. So I thought I would share that. If there is no further reports, we will move on to upcoming events. Has any, I know that Councillor Melnick and I will be attending the Alberta Muni's President Summit on Civility and Spring Municipal Leaders Caucus starting tomorrow until Friday. And if there's anything that needs to be added. Seeing none, is there someone willing to make the motion that we adjourn? Councillor, all those in favor? The meeting is adjourned.